All right, this says it's recording, and the line I like to say is all my friends and guests I asked to do this need no introduction, so you're not going to get one. It's Christopher Carter, everyone. Thanks for doing this, Chris. And uh, it's been good to kind of see progress on all the various projects, and I can't wait to chat with you and everything. And yeah, so first off, you've been as usual busy with shows. What kind of gigs you've been doing? What are you gearing up for? Give us an update on the old showbiz front.
You bet. Oh, well, most of my shows these days are a mix between corporate events and speaking events, which are typically corporate, but also association events. About 60% are just purely entertainment, about 40% are keynotes and educational. But the revenue is flipped the other way. So most of my money
Mm,
comes from the keynotes and educational, a little less from the entertainment part of it. But this is a very busy month. In the next week, I have
great,
four full-fledged keynotes plus three really good corporate events, which in this type of business for me feels really good.
good, good. How long are your keynotes?
I typically do an hour. Sometimes I'll do an hour and 15. Occasionally, I'll get a client that wants more because I do what I call a workshop keynote. So it's got a little hybrid
Mm,
of both. It's got keynote type motivational elements and also workshop on communication skills. Because of that,
great.
sometimes people will stretch it out. So I've got a couple programs coming up where I'll be doing 2 hours. And in the next month, I have a full day training program.
Awesome. Awesome. And yeah, it's been really great to see, like, we've known each other for the better part of a decade now, and it's been great to see with your penguin lecture and the articles you write and everything. It's been great to see like other people in the industry, at large, know more and more about you. Of course, you've been around for a long time. But well, in fact, I want to kind of start here because I don't get a chance to um, nerd out on these types of things, and also people uh, are kind of shocked to find out you created a not no longer arguable a full on classic of modern close up magic. Uh,
Uh, Kind of, sort of. Yeah, I
it's
created the effect that ended up being called Anniversary Waltz.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you, what I think you said the original title was Cold
Was
Fusion.
Cold Fusion. Yeah, Cold Fusion.
Nice,
It appeared in the
nice.
Linking Ring magazine in 1990, I believe. And
Mm,
I was doing it years before then. Well, really, when Cold Fusion was a thing in the news. So that
mm-hmm.
would have been in the 80s at some point, but I don't remember precisely when. And yeah, it was just the title suggested the plot,
Yeah,
and ta-da, it was born.
yeah, and it's well, and again, it's still being used. It's not like a fringe thing. It's also one of those things where people, and I like bringing this up because I feel like a lot of people see things like that and they're like, oh, it's old. No one, like, who knows? It's been around for a long, long time. And that's the extent they do of their crediting on on their work. And and
Well,
that, and, and that said, I mean, you've been very well credited from all the people that
yeah, oh
matter.
yeah,
But I
I'm
think
not concerned about that.
but at the same time, I mean, I do agree with Max Maven, which is I think ideas are important, and I think it's important to know where they come from. And something like that is, I think, really, really important. And it's a fun little, it's at the very least a fun little in for for some of the
It is,
people in here who don't know
for
that.
me though, it's a connection to what seems like somebody else's life. In
Sure,
in
sure.
those days, I was all about close-up card magic, and
Hmm.
sometimes I will do something even today, and people go, "Wow, you really have some card chops." And the answer is, not really. No, I used to at one
Same.
point.
Yeah.
At one
Yeah.
point, I had them. I have enough to do three things that are good, and that's it. So that's
Hmm.
all I can do now. But I still
Hmm.
enjoy doing it. I love watching that kind of work. And I would
Hmm.
probably love reading and practicing it more. It's just that, my life is spent on other things at the moment.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, so you started with close up. When did you make the transition to only mentalism?
1990 into 1991. So I was
Okay.
in grad school. I was finishing up a PhD in theater. I got doctoral candidacy, was going to do my dissertation, moved to Chicago because I really wanted to be a professional performer. And in those days,
Hmm.
it was all about close-up magic, at least for me. And I really
Hmm.
thought that I was going to be working in trade shows. And then I started to work in trade shows and I found out it really wasn't a good place for me. I really wanted to be a stage performer. I loved
Mm.
that kind of connection. And in those days, and I think this is actually still largely true, there's two things you can do. If you're not going to do great big box tricks, you can do two things. Number one, you can be really funny, or number two, you can be so freaking amazing that it doesn't matter that you're not really funny. Um, and I wasn't really funny. I've never been really funny. I'm kind of funny, but I'm not really funny.
Mhm.
I'm not a comedian. I always came across as fairly cerebral, and that's not unwarranted. I am kind of. So
Mhm.
moving into mentalism was a really natural fit for me. And I'd actually been working on it since I was 18 years old. I just hadn't decided to make a leap into doing just that.
Yeah. In your opinion, what do you think most people get wrong with mentalism? Most magicians, most performers starting out, or not starting
I,
out
I
even.
I think that overwhelmingly the most important thing they get wrong is they don't treat the premise seriously. You can
Mm.
be really funny. You can be very mysterious. That none of that matters. That what matters is that you present the premise as if it is real. Doesn't mean you have to claim to be real. I'm not saying that's a different issue altogether. But most comedy magic involves at some level making fun of the magic. And it's not bad. It's terrific, actually. I mean, Nick Defat is unbelievable. Uh, But at some point you're going, haha, isn't this all silly joke? You can't do that with mentalism. You just can't. You have to treat the mentalism as if it is real. I know really great mentalists who are also really great comedians. But the idea of a comedy mentalist usually doesn't work well. Not always. There's always exceptions to all
Hmm.
these things, but
Sure.
usually doesn't work well because in the act of being comedy, they're making fun of the premise. Haha, isn't it silly that I can do this? No, it's not silly. It's unbelievable. You're demonstrating real powers. Again, not saying you're claiming they're
Hmm.
real, but if you don't act like they're real, then in my opinion, you're not doing mentalism, you're doing something else.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you think that comes from your background in theater?
Maybe, maybe. I also think it really just comes from observing the kind of impact you get. You can amaze people or you can shake them to their core. You cannot shake them to their core until you treat it seriously. You act as
Hmm.
if. And you're right about the theatrical background. In what's so-called method acting, the goal is to act as if you are experiencing those emotions, which means you have to analyze those emotions, find them within yourself, as if you are this character, which means you have to dig into what would this character be doing. You have to do a lot of work. So it's really the same thing in mentalism. If my goal, and it is to act as if these things are real, then I have to make decisions for myself. Like, what does it look like when it's real? What is my process of achieving these things? And otherwise, you don't have anything to act. You're
Hmm.
just, I know, putting your hand to your forehead and wincing. That's not the same thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Great. So going back to process, I think there's like again the artistic, you know, not the actual method, not the and again we've got this is only mystery performers, so we don't want to speak too much, but at the same time, we don't want to give away like each of our professional work, but we can use general terms. Like, there's a difference between peeking and revealing what you peeked, and
Right.
like that, and making
Yeah.
that into something. What are some of your, I guess, I guess you could say powers you're demonstrating, and what are you trying to convey when you are presenting? We'll just say, for example, a straight ahead mind reading thing. You've glimpsed something, you forced something, you got the info, and going about revealing it. Like, what's your
I
process for coming up with
demonstrate two
something like
powers
that?
and only two. I will say that under certain limited circumstances, I can figure out what you've been thinking.
Mhm.
And I can also, under very limited circumstances, get you to think what I want you to think in order to make a prediction come true. So those are the powers. But it doesn't stay
Mhm.
static throughout the show. It starts out with body language as the show goes on. Eventually, I'm going to do my blindfold question and answer act. Obviously, you're not reading body language. So the progression of it is continuously trying more and more challenging things till I get to the point where I will simply announce, we're warmed up. We're ready for me to just try my intuition. No more
Mhm.
reading people. Now it's just put myself in the moment and see what I can tell you about you. And that's how we segue into the blindfold Q&A. So the idea that there's this progression, I start to use my
Mhm.
really observational skills, and then at some point I get so adept that I can abandon those and move into something that's like mind reading. So what this means in practice is that when I'm doing anything that involves body language reading, I better have clear ideas of what it is I'm looking for. I mean, theatrically, what it is I'm looking for in somebody. And the second thing is when I get to the point that's more like mind reading, I should have some idea of what that mind reading process looks like. And so I've really carefully defined it in my mind that it's a conversation between me and you where some of what you do tell me comes through conversation and some of it just pops into my brain through a series of hunches or intuitions and each part feeds on or builds the other. um, I'm not saying that everybody has to do it that way. They don't.
Mhm.
But I do think that you have to know how it is you're going to do it, and you have to have some internally coherent reason why you're going to present it in that way.
Mhm. Yeah, it's you, not everyone has to present it the same way you do, but they should know what they're presenting. Is the ghost telling you? Are you picking it up from the object? Is it body language? All that type of stuff. And like I've noticed how like fast material progresses when you do like hone in on those things and really like like and it comes to the point where like I'm finding that I can now see an effect and go, oh, that will fit me or it will not. And it has nothing to
Well,
do with the method or even to some extent the effect.
well,
Because it's
sure, and
like, oh,
that's a
I,
wonderful place to be, and congratulations, that puts you ahead of most other people. So
I
that's good
I'm
news.
I'm I'm trying. I'm at the very
Well,
least
we're all
trying.
trying.
And
That's the point.
oh
None of
yeah,
us is
yeah,
done.
yeah.
So put it this way. The core question that you need to ask yourself about each individual effect is what is it about? And I mean
Mhm.
that. What's the story of the effect? You can call it the hook, the grabber, but what is the premise? What is it you're trying to achieve or accomplish? And I'll try to give an example, a way that I structure my Pegasus page. I am going to try to make you see something that isn't real, that doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Once I've established that premise, then you know, I'm not very good at improvising, but I love editing. I love just taking things and
Mhm.
throwing out the things that are not supportive of the premise. So from that point, it's me acting everything that's necessary to try to make that premise seem believable to somebody. And so if you know very clearly what the premise is, blindfold Q&A, while blindfolded, I can listen to my intuition. I can talk to you and then tell you more than what you're telling me verbally. Boom, I've got a hook. I've got some way. So that justifies the blindfold. Why do I need it? Because I'm distracted. I've got to get rid of
Mhm.
distractions. Why am I talking to you? Because if I could pluck every little thought out of your brain, I wouldn't be here. I'd be working for the CIA. No, it's a
Mhm.
process of conversation, and that conversation lends itself to intuition. So we move from conversation to something that looks like mind reading. So you get the idea. Once you've decided what it's about, then you know what to make it look like.
Mhm. Yeah, and also it answers all the questions you get asked after the show too. Like what
Well,
one of the
okay, but I mean,
things.
how you answer those questions is almost an entirely different ball of wax. You can
Sure,
keep your
sure.
fiction, you can keep your fiction going after the show if you want, or not. That's really an ethical question.
Yeah.
If somebody comes up to me after a show, and this is just me again, I'm not making pronouncements for anybody, and they will say, can you really read minds? I'll say no. I can figure things out. and I do it through a mixture of
Hmm.
illusion, psychology. Sometimes it's just my hunch. Now, again, even that's stretching the truth. It's damn near all through illusion. So,
Hmm.
I'm finding some kind of accommodation for myself, but uh, theatrically, in the show, I think you need to make a set of choices about what
Yeah.
it is you're doing. And this is the other thing I'm just nuts about: simplicity of premise. I had a
Hmm.
discussion on this on my Facebook page. If you cannot define your premise, not the effect, but the premise of the effect, because they're different things, but if you cannot define the premise of your effect in a simple sentence, it's probably way the hell too complicated.
Hmm. No, I wholeheartedly agree. Where so going off of before, what I was like, again, like the conversations after the show, where I was kind of going with that is like you can use that to inform what's happening on stage. Like I've had so many
Okay, I see what
people
you're saying.
be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, he's a skeptic. He's a skeptic." And so I now, and I got sick of hearing it after shows. So I'm like, well, if I address it during shows, then I won't hear it. So I borrowed. I saw an old clip of Cardor at one of the invocationals, I think,
Uh-huh.
and I invoke him uh, in this gag, which is, I say, no, don't point out the skeptics. We're all skeptical right now. We're in a show. Without any skepticism, this show would be 5 minutes long. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. Good night. That's a mind reading show with zero skepticism. And, it gets the point across, and also makes the skeptic more like me more. And then I can bring them up and headlock them and knock them out psychologically, of course. Yeah, simplicity of effect. So
No,
I'm
no, no.
gonna
Simplicity of
oh,
premise. I want to
simplicity of
distinguish there.
premise. Okay, so okay, perfect. Okay, so that kind of so simplicity of premise. So I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate
Sure.
because I don't believe what I'm about to ask, but I have my own answer. But I'm curious for yours. Uh, how would you use that to justify? I'm just going to use this name because he's not in the U.S. and he's on TV and everything. Darren Brown. He has a
Hmm.
very, we'll just say, complicated approach to some of his finales where everything is mixed up and all
Everything
this
comes
stuff
together.
and
Right.
everything. But there's like, I've heard some performers argue, oh, he's coasting by on his celebrity for that. Oh, he's, no person leaving that show could possibly describe what just happened after all that. Um,
No, that's a fair point. I'll let you finish the question, then I will
no,
do
no.
my
Well, I'm
best
just
to
curious
address
what
it.
what your would you agree with that person that
No, I would
that's the
not.
case?
I would
Okay.
say the idea of me being critical of Darren Brown about what he does on stage is absurd. Success speaks for itself. I would
Sure,
say
sure.
that may be the exception that proves the rule.
Hmm.
If you are a compelling performer, and also, I would say if you're a compelling performer, you probably can pull off things that might not be as logical. So the less skill you have as a performer, the more you're going to need to rely on crutches of various kinds. But I also say this,
Hmm.
I haven't watched all of the Darren Brown shows. I'm a huge
Sure,
fan, but I don't watch all of them because I really don't want to be too influenced by it.
sure.
But what is the premise? The premise is that he can use psychology to get you to do any darn thing you want. Well, that's not the only premise, but that's a big premise. So even that crazy finale really is that premise, just extrapolated out to logical extremes. He's saying, look, I can make this happen and this happen and this happen and this happen, and they all come together. It's kind of like a mystery novel where all the threads come together.
Hmm.
Um, a very complicated effect, but a very simple premise.
Agreed. And also, I've never had to do a 2.5 hour concert for 2,000 people of only doing mentalism. I might do one or two dealer items too, and bust out the longer routines to fill the time. Let alone having to do that completely fresh every 2 to 4 years.
Yeah. So let me
I
just step
cannot
back
imagine.
and clarify one thing. I'm not a
Sure,
sage.
sure,
The only expertise that I have is what's
sure.
attributed to me through experience, and people who know my experience. I am a student. And so
Yeah.
I'm constantly looking and asking, does this work? If so, why so? If not, why not? And I'll do this, of course, for everybody else, but I'm doing it mostly for me, for my own work.
Sure.
And I have never stated in my brain, and this has never happened ever. I've never in my brain stated a rule. This is what should be, and not seen
Hmm.
somebody who has broken that rule to huge effect.
Hmm.
So, uh,
Yeah.
so that tells me that there are exceptions to these rules. So what is the purpose of the rule? The purpose is to give us some set of structure that we can hang our show on.
Hmm.
Uh, I think, I'm not sure, but I think it might have been Orson Welles who said it about directing. It might have been somebody else. But, once you know the rules, you can break them, but you better know
Hmm.
why you're breaking them.
Yeah.
So again, what do I think of Darren Brown's finale? I think it's
Yeah.
freaking fabulous, is what I
Yeah.
think of
Oh,
it.
yeah. And agreed. Agreed.
But I
Um,
also don't think I can pull it off.
Same. Oh, yeah. That's the other thing. All those people who say that, it's like, well, and when they say coasting on celebrity, my response to that is, isn't that the point to get to that level? Like, at
But
least
but
for
but
him,
I
at
I
least for
don't think
him,
it's coasting
like,
on celebrity. He's an
sure,
extremely
sure.
charismatic
Well,
performer with an extremely
sure.
compelling hook behind what he's doing. He
Yeah.
commits to it totally. And like I said, I try to make a distinction between effect and premise. So,
Hmm.
what is the effect of David Roth's Invisible Hole? The effect is
Hmm.
coins disappearing and reappearing under felt. The premise is that there is an invisible hole. We want to keep that in mind because,
Hmm.
what is our effect? Our effect is we figure out thoughts or we read minds. The premise is maybe we read body language. Maybe we use intuition in this way or that way. Um, and I can't tell you what you should do with your effects, but I can tell you that I think your premises should be simple and compelling.
Hmm. No, agreed. Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, when just to clarify for anyone watching this later on, I'm not saying the point is to coast on your celebrity. The point is, be good enough and loved enough by your audience that you can get away with anything. Is
Well, and there's
just
there's a good
and
point to
that's more
that as well.
clarifying for people watching this, not so
Well,
much with
there is
but
you hit on something also really, really, I think very important. Once the audience has bought into the basic idea and allowed themselves to be transported by the rhythm of the act and the moments and the
mhm.
beats, you can take them practically anywhere.
Yeah.
When I was starting out, I was doing a lot of noon shows at community and technical colleges. And I would actually front end it with my blindfold Q&A. So I would do one trick. It was always the tossed out deck and then the blindfold Q&A.
Oh,
And then
wow.
once the blindfold came off, a lot of other effects. And I did it because number one, the blindfold Q&A built a huge audience. And number two, once they were with me with that, I could do anything I felt like doing and they would stick along for the ride, no matter how outrageous or absurd or beyond the premise of whatever it is I claimed I could do it was. And so it was a huge crutch. So don't underestimate, the power
Sure.
of that halo that surrounds us. If you're good
Hmm.
and the audience loves you, then you have the opportunity to play with them. And I do think audiences really enjoy that level of mastery. They want to be taken for a ride. I don't mean in a,
Hmm.
kind of a con man sense, but they want to be taken on a journey. So grab them early and you have a better chance of that.
Yeah. I think the Jerks just wrote about this. The world wants to be charmed. They want to go on that journey. Uh, it's not about proving anything.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
about
know who
that. So,
precisely would say
uh,
that, but I know this. Nobody
mhm.
comes to your show with a very few precious exceptions with the intent of having a bad time. They really
Yeah,
want to have a good
yeah,
time. And so if you step forward with sufficient confidence and you actually listen to the audience or show them that you're engaged with them, they'll travel with you.
Hmm.
If you look like you're lacking in confidence, then they'll tune you out right away. They'll assume you can't take them on that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, going in a slightly different direction. So if they have the premise clear and such, uh, how do you personally feel about um like those who are mixing some magic in with their mentalism or mentalism in with their magic? Again, I know the answer. We've talked about this at length.
Yeah,
We've talked
sure.
about it on your
Well, I
penguin
think about it
lectures,
on two levels.
but
I think about it
yeah.
on a marketing level, and I think about it on
Hmm.
an artistic level. So let's talk about the artistic level first. Most people, not all, but most people who do it very poorly. And the reason they do it poorly is because they are undercutting the premise of their mind reading through the kind of somewhat cheesy magic that they're doing. Obviously, it's possible. It's done successfully. I mean, pretty much every great mentalist has done magic tricks at some point and said,
Hmm.
"Oh, look, I used to do magic tricks, and now I do this."
Hmm.
So it's totally possible on an artistic way. Is it advisable? Well, again, that depends a lot on you and your selection of the magic tricks you do and the way you present those magic tricks. So to use, kind of the argument from absurdity, if you do say, I used to be a magician, and let me share with you one of the greatest mysteries I ever learned. And you do the linking finger rings, a la Quran, a la Kreskin.
Hmm.
It's so freaking amazing. They go, wow, you are really that great. Maybe you made us hypnotized and we thought all this happened. But if you
Hmm.
go, I used to be a magician, and here's the hippie hop rabbits, you're going to have a harder time making that transition. Doesn't mean you can't do it. A lot of that has to do with the narrative that you create as you do it. Let me
Hmm.
show you what I did as a kid, and now you
Hmm.
probably can get away with it if you present it with the integrity of this was me at one time and this is me at another time. But if you try to create a continuity, this is me now, and here's the pom pom sticks, and now write the name down on the billet, it's not going to work for you.
Sure, sure. Going
Now,
in that
let's
regard.
talk about marketing,
Okay.
huh?
Oh yeah, yeah. Marketing.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes.
I think if you are a magician and mentalist, I really think that you are missing the boat from a marketing perspective. And
Mm,
all of you are going to hate me for this and disagree with me, and you say I do it and it's what the audience expects. So let me address both of those issues. One of the reasons that somebody would book a mentalist is because you're not a magician. They had the magician last year. He was great. He was fun. Now they want something different. So from a marketing perspective, you're stepping on your own toes, or,
hmm.
industry wide, there's a lot of people stepping on a lot of marketing toes. You're giving up a lot of marketing power. There, of course, are people who will say, but, this is what the audience expects now. I think as a performer, the audience expectation is almost the last thing that you should be thinking about. It should be
Mm,
us defining the audience expectations. Uh, you know, um, Rick Rubin, the record producer,
hmm.
he says in any great artist, the audience comes last. Does not mean they're not important. But what is important is the work itself. The work sets the expectations. Um, I'm not a great artist, but I try. I do my best, and I agree. I agree with Rick Rubin on that. Create the world that you want to create that's interesting and compelling for you. And if it's authentic to you, if it seems like it comes from some core of your being, you're so much more likely to get the audience to come along on this ride than if you are pandering to what you think they expect of you.
Yeah. I want to talk more about marketing, but before we get too far off, in relation to where we were at before, you mentioned this on one of your penguin lectures, and every time we've
Can
chatted
I interrupt
since
you
then,
really
I've,
quick,
I've
Joe?
go ahead, go ahead.
And Chris Morrison had a hand up, so we'll do
Oh,
this and
oh,
get to his hand up.
oh, sure, 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 sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Chris. I'll tell you what, Chris Morrison, if you shoot me in the chat if you want to come on, or if you just want to type a question, because I'm not seeing a video on for you. So just to keep that in mind. But yeah, but Chris Morrison, if you got a question, shoot me a message if you want to come on, or if you just want to type it in the chat. Oh, he actually said no hand up, just emoji applause.
Oh,
So
well, thank you,
he's
Chris. I
clapping.
appreciate
So
it.
okay, so there's at least two of us that agree with you on that. So see, we don't hate you. Uh, but going back to, you said in one of your Penguin lectures about mixing magic in with your mentalism, and you have covered that. You've started to brush against this other aspect where you said, I don't know about doing mentalism in a magic show though. Like, why do you
Yeah,
feel
well,
it works in one
that's
and not the
interesting.
other?
I
Or maybe
agree.
you don't feel that way anymore.
Uh, well, again, I hate to be the arbiter, but I rarely see it work well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we ought to be asking why it does not generally work well. And I think a big part of that really does come down to what are you asking the audience to buy into at the moment. But I've seen people use it really effectively. Comedy magician Nick Lewin does a couple of mentalism effects in the middle. And his line is, this was magic of the hands, and now let's do some magic of the mind. And it works beautifully for him. I do think that that makes it mental magic as opposed to mentalism, but that's a kind of quibble that a professional performer probably just they have their own take on it, and whatever I say is not going to sway them anyway. But
Mm-hmm.
if you get to the point where you're really working and thinking about your craft, you'll make your own accommodations and your own conclusions along those lines.
Absolutely. Going back to marketing now, you you've done a lot. You've as you said, close up. You do. You seem like one of those people. That said, you seem like one of those people who's always working, but you're not like we don't see your marketing on your Facebook pages
No, I
and
keep it out of there
social media and all
specifically.
that stuff.
Well, if you were on my
Um,
LinkedIn page, you'd see it.
okay, fair
But
enough. Okay, so yeah, so talk because it's something I'm starting to try to figure out now. I'm also realizing like, oh, I'm now pretty locked into and enjoy most like the ticket sales aspect rather
mhm.
than doing the bookings.
Well, I
So
mean, you
therefore,
handle
I'm
social
probably
media, yeah, actively and really well. Social media, if you're selling to the general public, I'm thinking of Instagram, for example, or Facebook,
mhm,
or even TikTok. Twitter, not anymore, but it was at one time usable along these lines,
mhm,
is really important for building a public-facing brand.
mhm,
Now, more than any other time in performance history, it's essential to build a public facing brand if you're going to be booked in gigs for the public. The college campus market that I grew up in really barely exists now. But to the extent that it
mhm,
does, if you want to go into it, building that brand is really important for you. Now, what I do are primarily corporate events. And for me, that's a B2B kind of marketing, business to business marketing. So that kind of social media effort, for me, it's going to take a ton of my time and simply not be worth it. But
mhm,
if you I'm only an occasional cruise ship performer, but if you're a cruise ship performer, yes, you want your Instagram channel so that all those people can go and see you and get hyped when they come to the show. If you're doing like you do and selling tickets, boy, do you want that because that's the
mhm,
source of your credibility as an entertainer. Um, I'm
mhm.
at a stage in life where that's not the direction I've gone in, and it would be incredibly time consuming for me, and I just don't want to do it.
Sure, sure. Uh, so that said, I mean, what? Because again, unfortunately, a lot of people starting out, and I know there's people in the group who are watching this now and who will watch that are maybe doing it part time and are starting to dip into full time, and you're really only seeing like how to market and everything from other social media things. So how does one get into? I know you've recommended some great books to me on this regard, but like how would you suggest someone getting into or getting started with B2B or business to business marketing so they're not just throwing stuff up on Facebook all the time hoping something sticks?
Yeah, and it won't help you very much for business to business. First thing you need to do is understand what a what performing in a business meeting really is. What kind of
Hmm.
performance avenues are you? A lot of times when people refer to corporate magic, they're either talking trade shows or they're talking Christmas parties. Trade shows,
Hmm.
in the way that I define this world, are very much corporate magic. Christmas parties are not. Christmas parties
Mm.
are entertainment for employees. The corporate market where the money is, and there again, let me just give the caveat: there are people who make way more money than I do, but I also make way more than a lot of others. So there's always somebody who's making more than you.
Hmm. Oh yes.
Um,
Oh yes.
but the corporate magic is magic that would be for a business meeting. So what are your avenues? Well, one, you could kick off a business meeting and you could have some kind of presentation that does that. That implies a set of conditions. Primarily, you're going to want to have something that has some sort of business message to it. Because very, very few business meetings are going to want to kick off that doesn't wrap up or create a message. Another would be doing an after dinner show that's part of a sales meeting or an incentive sales meeting or an awards banquet. Again, some kind of business tie-in. And then in between that would be this kind of world of entertainment slash keynote speaking hybrid. Um, so that's what you're trying to decide. What is my product? And you better be able to define that product. The second thing that you're going to want to know is why they are buying you. And the best way to
Hmm.
find that out is to talk to some people who plan business meetings and ask them. In the world of where in which I was coached, they're called AIR calls, advice, insights, and recommendations. So if you have somebody who's in the business of planning business meetings, then get them on the phone, get them on Zoom, and say to them, okay, I have this product that's not fully developed. What do I need to know about your world? What is your motivation? Why would you bring in somebody to be entertaining? Under what circumstances would you bring in something? What is the outcome you want for your meeting? Get really clear on these outcomes. And again, that'll be a little
Hmm.
different for an after dinner show than it will be if you're doing this keynote entertainment hybrid, which is a big part of what I do. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And yeah, I think yeah, one of the questions I got sent earlier from someone, there's usually someone who isn't able to make this, and
Hmm.
they send me a couple questions ahead of time. So so thank you, Don, for that. Going over my notes, just making sure I got through all of those. Uh AI, we were talking about it before we hit record, and you said you're hesitant with it, but you have been using it.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I use it a
uh,
lot, and yes, I have
okay.
a lot of qualms about it.
I think we all should, for all the reasons we were talking about earlier. We That's a whole other discussion. But you said you have been using it in an interesting way that you'd be willing to
Yeah,
talk about. So I'm
I'm happy to
curious.
share this. So, let's say I won't say the name of the firm, but I had a law firm, a really big law firm, contact me recently to ask about creating a presentation, or delivering rather a presentation
Hmm.
for a partners retreat. Now, when I'm brought in, again, I do sort of an entertainment slash keynote hybrid. So the keynote component of it is about communication skills. That's what I teach. I go back to my theater background, and I'm teaching nonverbal communication to connect with people, to make them feel listened, heard, and understood. So that's the box, right? But the pitch is it's really entertaining. So it's going to weave in and out of this show, and pieces of the show are going to illustrate important points for the presentation. So we've got that. Now, in that kind of presentation, they have a set of business outcomes they're looking for. They have problems that they're addressing that they kind of hope that this keynote, if won't solve, will at least address them.
Hmm.
So what I do is I'll take the name of the company and I'll go into the chat deep search function, and I will say I would like you to search job reporting sites, industry magazines, and internal communications to tell me what communication problems this company is currently having. And then I get
Mm.
this big dossier. And then I say, okay, here's my standard proposal. I've got a set of text. rewrite my standard proposal so that it reflects and addresses and attempts to answer their problems. Having done
That's
that,
great.
I
That's
distill it
great.
to 3 to 5 bullet points and I paste them to the screen right next to the camera so that when I'm talking to them and I say, well, tell me about the communication challenges that you're facing. And very often they'll say the challenges that are on this list. Many times they won't. So I'll say, have you had a problem with employees reporting that they feel like they're not really heard and understood by management, or or whatever the problem is? And they'll nod and go, yeah, we're having that problem. Well, a lot of what I do will address that problem because it will show your leaders how to interact with the people that they lead in such a way that those people feel heard. So you get the idea. I
Mhm.
use chat to identify their big problems, and then I make the pitch for, okay, these are the problems that I can address for you. And then
That's
it's going to be
great.
the same basic speech, but now it's going to have a section that's written to say, I know you're having these problems and these problems and these problems. Let me share with you some solutions for those. And now it's pertinent to them. And then I get the
Mhm.
gig.
It's great. That is great. Absolutely. Yeah, it's well, and like the other thing too that I love about this and using this as a or thing to talk about for the group, you're not just doing it and then it's done. It's not doing the work for you. It's helping you do the work faster. You still have to
Yes.
look at it and use your own common sense and
Right.
personality and put that into it. Um, but yeah, that's great. That's a great tip for stuff. Yeah, so
And
that's
and I
great.
think that anytime you're working at a price point where you need to have a sales meeting to sell a gig, you can use that kind of research really advantageously, and it will help you because you don't need to cite sources. You don't need to. What you need to do is have enough insight to their problems that you can use their jargon. That's really important, and discuss
Hmm.
those problems and show how you address them. And if you're just entertaining, maybe you can use a deep search to find out what they've had in the last several years.
Hmm.
That's pretty helpful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Since we're on the subject, Tony knows I've done this. I haven't talked too much about some of the other things I've used it for, but this is something I've really something that I've used that I think other mentalists and mystery performers could use. I've taken the Forer experiments, those like Barnum statements of like the most common things to hit. And if I'm going to let's just say like social media influencer, uh, I want to press them or like, oh, can you give me a reading? Oh yeah, send me a picture of your palm or oh yeah, just do this or whatever. I will have ChatGPT rewrite it in that person's like speaking style. So if they're
Okay,
like
very
more like
cool.
millennial,
Hmm.
I'll be like, hey, this person, this Gen X, someone older, I will
Uh-huh.
literally say rewrite this if they have a favorite author,
Uh-huh.
like Stephen King or something. I'll say rewrite this in like the tone
Oh,
of
that's
Stephen
clever.
King. And yeah, Tony writes your skibbity lifeline.
What was he saying?
uh your skibbity lifeline skibbity, I guess kids say skibbity, I don't know. But at the very least, if they take that text and Google it, you're not going to suddenly see, oh, this is an old experiment that everyone has
Okay.
seen and always been told. But it which I don't think is going to happen with most of those people, but I've heard a few like,
It gives you a little insurance policy. Sure.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think you hit on something that most people are not spending a lot of time concerned with, but I think they should be, and that is that there are ethical and, in my opinion, very unethical uses
Sure.
of
Yeah.
not just chat, but all AIs. Um, and it's inevitable. It opens up a set of ethical questions and
Sure.
almost renders a lot of what we think about the ethics of intellectual property almost renders a lot of it obsolete. I mean,
Hmm.
when you're in a world where it can skim everything. It's kind of a plagiarism machine, but you also can't stop it. So what do intellectual
Mhm.
property laws mean in that context? That's above my pay grade. I'm not worried about it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
um, but I
And to be clear too, I wouldn't use that if I had to like genuinely write a reading for someone like
mhm.
each time. Like if I was booked for a reading, I would just give them a reading. But if I'm just doing like, oh,
Okay,
here's something I can copy the text to and send them to, and something that they'll be like, oh, I like this, so let me keep talking to this guy or something, or we'll do something
sure.
bigger. I think context for that is important. I wouldn't just put that into a thing and sell it for $50 a pop of this is your ancient scroll message of your skibbity tarot
So
card reading. I don't know.
story
So there's
related
that.
to social
But
media,
yeah,
or not
oh
to
yeah,
social media,
oh
to
absolutely.
AI. I took a seminar on using AI to sell yourself as a speaker. And it was a 3-day intensive where you just tried every AI platform and
Mm,
he walked you through this. And the premise really is that you need to have a blog post a day, every day, that is SEO optimized. And the person who gives this does that. But the reality is he's writing a 800 plus blog post every day that he's not even writing. He's just having chat write it. And he says, I will adapt it to my own voice. No, you're not. You're not. You're tweaking a word or two here. None of the ideas are actually yours. None of the research is actually yours. And to present that and then call yourself a thought leader, look at all of my blog posts, is utter hogwash. And
yeah.
I got, and again, I'll get people who give me a lot of blowback on that. They'll insist that no, you can engage with chat, and yeah, you can, but that's not this. That's not what this is. This is
Hmm.
fraudulently claiming that the machine is your original thoughts. That's not what I'm talking
Hmm.
about. There are many useful tools that you can use it for, many useful things you can use it for.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I get all the hesitancy with it and everything, but I think so back when the iPod hit, DJs were like, oh my gosh, we're out of business. Well, people still hire DJs because they all had someone who just put together a playlist
Hmm.
at a wedding or a graduation, and it just sucked. And they're like, oh, we need someone who can read the crowd. And same thing with cameras with the iPhones. There's been the upside of that. There's been an even bigger boom in people like, no, no, we want to hire a photographer. And there's more
Hmm.
people into photography because of it. And like that, I think has been like the best across. Um, so I think we're going to have a similar thing with AI. I think to a certain extent, I think some things when if you say your show is it's already happening a little bit, like no AI was used in this or whatever. I think that will be like a kind of brand,
Well, I think it's a worthwhile
a thing.
brand too. I don't
Oh,
want to
oh
see a
yeah,
show
yeah,
that's great. Well,
yeah.
again, what future is our technology leading us toward? I'm a cynical old fart, so I just work on the assumption that we're all going to hell in a handbasket, and
No, we'll be fine until the sun envelops us. That will we. I don't think we're gonna beat the universe at large. We might
no,
speed it
we're
up,
not.
but
For honestly, for me, the best thing about the future is I'm not likely to live to see much of it. I mean, I'm turning 59. I've got some good years ahead of me. What
Oh
are we going to be
man.
like when we're
Uh,
brain linked to the world?
oh
The good news
man.
is I'm not going to
Uh,
experience that, and I don't want to. I'm done with all of that. What I like,
that's
what I
amazing.
what I like is in-person live performance and the authentic
Yeah,
connections that it makes.
yeah. And I think the more AI does that stuff, like the more valuable that will be, the more valuable we will be. I truly believe that.
Well, I hope
Um,
so. Let's
yeah,
let some
yeah.
of your
So,
optimism wash over me because I have serious concerns.
well, again, there may be some really deep, dark slumps in between, but I think overall, I think overall people are craving for something that is more interactive. I think
Okay.
once they use enough of the crappy AI art that's looks just like the competitions down the street, they're going to want to then hire a graphic designer who will truly make them something new and different.
Okay. Well, again,
Like,
I look forward to that day, and I hope that that
oh, we're
happens.
not there yet. I will fully admit we're not there yet. It may not even happen in either of our lifetimes, but that's what my gut says about that. We Oh, there's one more question from Matthew, and this
Right.
kind of leads into a little bit about the question I was planning on finishing with this. Uh, Gee, Chris, what have people asked you about the most over the last few years?
Well, definitely. Well, the book.
Yes,
That's
yes,
where you're leading. I should have brought it down. I actually have a physical copy of it,
yes,
and
yes.
so it does exist. It has been printed. Where they are, I don't know.
If
Shortly
you've been
after,
watching the news lately about
yeah, it's
supply
right.
chains and everything, okay.
I think that they are very likely sitting in a container box on a ship at a port, or they may be out of the port. All I can say is this: I am not allowed by my publishers to make an official announcement because I don't even know that they know themselves. But I know it's coming soon because otherwise I wouldn't have an actual physical copy. And I know it's coming
Sure.
soon because I have recorded a promo for it. And I know it's coming soon because people are starting to review it. So,
Hmm,
uh, you know,
great.
what do I hope? I hope a June release. Probably not. But
Sure,
June,
sure,
July, that's what I hope. I can't say that's going to happen. I mean, the rules behind tariffs, and I don't want to get political on this, but the
sure.
reality is that they change daily. And that has to have a big impact on anybody who's importing a bunch of books in from the printer in China. It does. So I don't, but they don't share
Mhm.
that with me. I don't
Sure,
know any of
sure.
that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. That's not your job. Your job is technically done now. You just have to let people know about it. Scott asks, is the title of the book The Center Tariff? Um, that's the title of my book, Scott.
That's a good. The title is In the Spotlight because
Yes.
it's about taking mentalism from idea stage to on the stage.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think Matthew was asking about the question answer act
Yes.
too.
Yes. Which so yeah, and that's kind of where I was gonna kind of bridge this because a long time ago you sent me a very early version of it, and you've been kind enough to let me use some of the material and adapt some of it before the book has come out, and that's very kind of you. I'm excited that other people can see it now. So when they ask, like, "Oh, is that?" Okay, I can't. You'll see when it comes out. You can't use it now. But I know there was some talk about the Q&A, some Q&A stuff being in there.
Mhm.
There might be a I don't know if you're allowed to talk about other alternate editions or anything. Was wondering
There are no
about that.
there are no separate editions. There was originally
Okay.
going to be one,
Okay.
and so I wrote up the whole blindfold for that, and then we decided that there shouldn't be kind of an elite, higher expensive. I wanted to put all my legacy material in for everybody so that all the books are the same price,
Great.
and so the book does contain two parts of the Q&A. Number one, the physical part, that is the how you do it. So it contains the details
Mhm.
behind the blindfolding method. And the other thing that it contains is the strategy behind the Q&A, which is all about making it look like you're getting much more than what's written down. And I have a very systematic
Yes.
approach to that that I've shared from time to time, but not much.
Yeah. Matthew's asking, can you speak of your Q&A structure? I think just like I guess again, you were talking a little bit before about your structure of your show. I'm not saying yeah we have to talk about any sort of method or anything like that here, but maybe talk about like how you
Yeah.
start it, how you wrap it up. Maybe some things in there.
Yeah, you bet.
Um,
And Matthew, if I'm not hitting on what you want, you can type in additional, modifiers to this, because that's a pretty broad question. What is the structure? So I get into Q&A. It is three-quarters of the way into the show now, and I get into it, and I essentially say, Well, we're warmed up. Now we're ready for the weird stuff. And then I explain everything that we've been doing is building up to this one moment. I love reading people. I love observing. I love trying to figure out. But at some point, you just have to let go and trust your instinct and intuition. So I'm going to bring two people out of the crowd to help me. And so I bring a person up and they blindfold me. I do, and I used to do a lot more than this, but now this is the way I do it. I do two sort of X-ray eye act stunts. Number one, I do a bill serial number, and number two, I reveal a name written on a dry erase board, or yeah, a word rather written on a dry erase board. And then I have those two people sit down on chairs behind me, and I say, we've reached the part where you and the audience are the real stars of this show. And you're going to try to send your random personal thoughts to me. And I'm going to have you print down three different types of thoughts because the act of writing is a whole brain activity. It engraves these things in your mind. You're not going to forget these. So item number one is easy. Please print your complete name, first, last, etc. Item number two, and I'll slow this down, of course, in the description. Item number two, think of something about you or about your life that there is no way I could possibly have guessed if, let's say, they had given me your name and allowed me to search you online. Or let's say I was listening in on your conversation. I want this to be specific, unique. So the funniest thing that ever happened to you, coolest thing you've ever done, names of pets, maybe a nickname you had as a kid. If you have weird tattoos in a bizarre location, describe one. I don't care what you go for, but make it so specific that if I guess it, you're going to be completely blown away. And then finally, item number three, a number. But very important, not a random number. I want it to be a personal number, like a phone number, an anniversary, an address, a phone number. If you really want to test me and you know a locker combination number by heart, excellent test. Go for it. If you know your social security number by heart, big laugh at that point. No, nobody ever goes through that. But if you know your major credit card number, include the expiration date and the CCV. So you get the idea. That's how I
Mhm.
introduce it. Now, an interesting thing is I no longer answer questions. I only
Mm.
reveal things about people. And the reason I do that is because I'm working primarily for business audiences, and they're really very concerned that you might do something that's way too personal or get them to talk about something
Mhm.
that's going to, get their HR division in some kind of trouble. So I avoid
Mhm.
questions altogether. And what I found is the old mentalism line about how everybody is interested in their questions being answered is true. They are. They just don't care about anybody else's questions being answered. So I want this to move
Sure.
along in a really quick set of beats. So now all the slips are collected by my two volunteers who've been with me on stage. They're put in a tray on a stand that's down here. Here, I'm going to stand up briefly. So
Mhm.
it's about this level to me, maybe more like
Mhm.
over here. And
You don't
then
know, you've never seen.
what's that?
You don't know,
I'm
you've
sorry.
never seen it.
And
You don't know, you've
then
never
I
seen it. So, yeah.
pick up a slip and I crumple it. And I say, sometimes this happens really quickly. I'll hold up a slip, I'll get a lot of impressions, sometimes very little, and I have to throw it away. Now, what I'm doing at that point is I'm memorizing one of the billets, every single thing I could possibly memorize about it. And then I pick that one up and I crumple it and go, I'm not getting the name. Let me just throw this into the audience. I don't know where anybody is, but I'll just toss. Could somebody please pick this up, open it up toward yourself? Just when you have it, let me know you have it. Now, by this point, I've probably got all of it down, unless it's a really long number. I know the name,
Mhm.
the fact, and the number. Sometimes I have two out of the three. But let's say I know the name. So Joe Diamond happens to be the name on it. First thing I'll say, is
Mhm.
this yours? Very rarely is it. If it is, well, we'll take that hit.
Yeah.
But I say, then introduce me in your mind, not out loud, but hear your inner voice. Just introduce me to Joe. Is it Joe? Great. JD. Is anybody here with initials JD? Pass it back to
Mhm.
that person. So now they'll pass it back. And so now, Joe, you would get it. And I say, is this yours? Yes, because people are always wondering, am I really sensing the one that I'm holding on to? And I really do. Now,
It's great.
have you told me your last name? And you'll say no.
No. Yeah.
And I'll say, good. And in that case, Mr. Diamond, would you concentrate on it? and that gets a big jolt from you. So now I'm going to work with the stuff I've remembered about you. I'll say,
Mhm.
don't tell me what your number is, but give it a kind of clue or a hint. What does it mean to you? And I'll divine the number, of course. And what I'm doing at this point is I'm looking at my tray and I'm remembering one that was next to yours
Mm.
because that person is probably in your general area. So right in the middle, I go, wait a minute, I'm
Mm.
sorry, Joe, who's Maria? Pretty good chance you know who Maria is. In fact, if they're right next to
Mhm.
each other, it's a pretty good chance Maria is your girlfriend. I know that's not your girlfriend, you're a married
Yeah,
man, but you get
yeah,
the
yeah.
idea.
No,
And you'll
my
say,
no, my girlfriend's name is Chuck. Yeah, exactly. So.
so I do that way to get into it. And once I start getting into it, I do a lot of bouncing from one person to another and drawing parallels between people. And I call it the ping pong ball effect. So I'll say, it's really interesting. I start to work with one person and then I just sort of bounce from them off to the people. Usually means you're thinking about something similar. And so now I'm just going to look at the billets and try to draw parallels and just bounce back and forth between the. Finally, I save out one that has either something really good nugget or that includes a middle name. I do like to finish with a middle name, but something that I can make a big showy ending with. So I'm just going to say hypothetically that I've got one with a middle name. I'll just push that off to the edge of the pile, get back to it later. So that once I've gotten the big finale, Joe, what's your middle name?
David.
David. Okay. So I say, and I'm getting JD. Is there initials with JD? And Joe says yes. And I'll quickly go boom, 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 boom through all of your material. And then I'll pause and go, oh, wait a minute. Oh, you're challenging me. I love it. I can hear in his voice, okay, mind reader boy, if you really can do this, tell me my middle name. I love a challenge. Is it David? And you freak out, of course,
Hmm.
and that's the end. So
Hmm.
that's a technique I call the imaginary challenge. You're obviously
Yeah.
not challenging me, but I will pretend that you've held out some bit of piece of information and that in your brain, you're challenging me so that we can create this kind of, humorously antagonistic relationship and then reveal
Hmm.
it. And then
That's
I
so good.
pull the tape
That's
off
so good.
and I try to make it look as painful as possible. And
Mhm.
if the audience is really applauding, I finish it right there because if they're really applauding, that's the perfect standing ovation pose. If they're not, I've got a
Mhm.
different finish.
That's great. That's great. That's great. Wow. Yeah, that's a huge tip from the upcoming book. That is incredible. Thank you so much for
So
sharing that.
if Matthew's still there, type in whether that addressed any of your questions because it's a
I
big
hope
topic.
I hope I hope Matthew's happy with that. I'm thrilled with that answer. That's incredible. Yeah, that's wonderful. You shared the real work here, Chris. People are gonna be like we talk too much. Oh, we got a big heart from Chris. Perfect. Um, but suffice to say, there's much more detail in the book. You cover some great things in there from again just and again reading your stuff over the years. Our conversations have always been so impactful and so helpful. So thank you again for that. Besides the book, anything else to plug, talk about, let people know?
No,
Should they?
most definitely not. And of course, I get asked, when's the next book coming? And the answer is, "Brr." That's it. That's the
uh
last book for the world of magic and mentalism. I'm never going to go down that road.
yep.
That's just years and years of bleeding into a keyboard. I'm against it. I don't want to do that again.
You're not going to pull a Barry Richardson and knock out two more of
Of
equally
course, I
great
I could.
material and
I
more
don't have the
size.
kind of material that, the volume of material that Barry, but this is also really important. The book is only containing things that have been part of my professional repertoire.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of it is stuff that is still my A material today. In fact, all of my
Hmm.
A material today is in it, but not all the book is that.
That is great. That is, yeah, that's amazing. Well, I'm even more excited to finally see it. Um, And so yeah, Matthew said that was great. He was at work, so he couldn't respond right away. And again, this will I'll put the recording up once we're done with this. But yeah, but everyone once
Way to
in this
multitask, Matthew. Well done.
yeah, hey, that's fine. That's fine. Uh, in the spotlight, coming soon. That's all we can say about that. Coming soon, and will be on shelves for years to come, and it will be yeah, it's again like I told you years ago. I was like, oh, this is something special. There's great, and you can also just tell when someone's done it a lot. Like you can just tell in the
Well,
writing and the way they
yeah,
address it and
I agree
everything.
with that. I know that I'm sure you feel like we got to wrap it up. So can I just, toss
Sure.
out one more
Go
thing?
go where no you if you want to talk for another however go
No,
ahead
we
you
won't do that. But
okay.
when I was a magician growing up, my
Mhm,
favorite book was The Uncanny Scott by Ron Wilson. And the reason it
mhm,
was my favorite is because it really was his act. I mean, it was the material that he worked with and developed. And you know that a piece has been worked and developed when that has some little tiny bit that you've done that same trick yourself for years and you go, crap, I should be doing that. And it was filled with that. It was filled with that. And then later on, I became aware of the Billy McComb books, which are very much the same way. And then I became aware of the Al Koran books, again, very much the same kind of thing. I think the reason that I liked these books is because it gave you a chance to step inside the brain of these performers who had developed careers out of it and understand their choices and why they're doing things the way they do. And even if you don't agree with those choices, because they've built a whole career, you're going, I want to sit up and pay attention to this. Maybe I'll learn something that I wasn't aware of, or maybe I'll see them solve a problem because performance is problem solving. Maybe I'll see them solve a problem that I can apply in this other spot. And you very rarely can do that when a book is filled with pipe dreams and things that somebody hasn't done. So that was my
mhm,
goal. I'm absolutely passionate about creating performance pieces. I'm not a hugely
mhm,
prolific creator of mentalism, but I do work hard at it. And what I really am is just passionate about creating scripts and reasons and dramatic through lines, and then perfecting the technique of the trick to the point where it just becomes invisible. So that's what I like to
mhm.
do. It's what I like to talk about. And my dream was that because I'm not able to talk to all of you in person all the time, that one day I'll have a conversation with you about your work, like I'm having a conversation about my with myself about my work in that book. And that's why I wrote it.
Well, wonderful. I'm excited. I'm excited we got to talk today and catch up and everything. And if people do have any follow-up questions, what's the best way? Should they just find you on Facebook? Should they
Facebook's
email
definitely the
you?
easiest way.
Facebook, perfect.
And
Yep.
and if you're not already friends with me on Facebook, I'm pretty prolific in who I accept as friends. I will scope you out to see if you're a real human being, and I will also scope you out to see whether you're a jerk. Um,
For,
but
for the
if
for
you're
the most
friends of
part,
Joe's
that's how it
here,
is. Yeah, for the most part, that's how it is with the Mystic Circle. There might be one or
yeah, that's right.
two.
If you're friends of
There might be
Joe's
one or
here,
two
you're
jerks.
probably going to be a friend of mine.
Yeah, yeah.
But
There might be one or
otherwise,
two jerks, but yeah,
you can
they're fun
email me
jerks.
my, and I'll give you my email. My email is chris@christophercarter.com. But the problem with email is it is a business email and they get
Yeah,
top priority. I do
yeah.
devote a little
It'll just
time
get
each day, for
buried.
Facebook. And so if you message me on Facebook,
We,
it's easier for me to find you and get back to you.
yeah, we text and use Facebook, and I think we just use Facebook now because it's always easier for both of us.
Mhm.
But yeah, so yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Chris. Everyone, go support. If you don't have his lectures, get the lectures, of course, as a
Oh,
tease
by
for the
all
book.
means, yeah, get my
So
Penguins
yeah,
Live 1 and 2.
both are great. I use
I get
stuff from
like
both of them.
$8 for each one of those you buy, so please get it.
Same. What for mine, not for yours. Oh, by the way, final thing. I mentioned it a little bit in one of our chats before we'll wrap up the recording. I'll tell you more about the details, but just to kind of extra sell everyone watching on the Zoom here and everything. Telepathy in the Parlor on your second Penguin lecture, I have been using, and it is great.
I'm so
And it
glad to hear
is,
that. It is the most overlooked thing that I think I've ever put out.
oh, it's so
Um,
good. It's
and
so,
I
so
really
good.
do like it. Good. I'm really glad to hear that.
It solves so many problems when you get into Q&A work, bill at work, mass mind reading, but also doing smaller, more intimate spaces. It just solves all the problems. That is worth. It's a cliche to say worth the price of the lecture, but I've definitely gotten my money's worth, even if that was the only thing. So everyone else should take a look at it too. Thank you again, Chris.
My pleasure.
Uh, Sit tight. I'm going to stop the recording.